Mark, we have a special guest on the phone. Who is it?
Ladies and gentlemen, he's one of my longtime friends. You know him on Twitter as at HM Faigen. He's a Lakers beat writer, editor-in-chief at Lakers Silver Screen and Roll. Ladies and gentlemen, Harrison Faigen.
Thanks for having me, Mark. I appreciate you making it for the start of the interview this time.
I made it. I finally made it. And with the first question, how does it feel to be right so far?
Just in general, I mean, I'm right about a lot of things, so I'm going to need you to be more specific.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry about that. Well, when it comes to the Lakers seasons, I guess you kind of called it when we first talked to you at the beginning of the season. You said that they're going to kind of be coasting into that third and fourth place, and here we are. The Lakers, I believe, are at third.
Yeah, so I honestly, I thought that it was going to be for different reasons than it is. You know, I was obviously not expecting an Anthony Davis Achilles injury and flare-up, and obviously, I'm not going to take a victory lap based on an injury or anything like that, but, I did think that this team would be careful with these guys, and, they have. I think to a degree, with Anthony Davis, this is the type of thing where he and I talked a couple weeks ago, and he said, he'd love to get back out on the floor now, but they're telling him to be patient, and, I think that we've seen them take that mindset with a few guys on this roster, and even LeBron heading into the All-Star break where they got him an extra day off there, and we're like, hey, you don't need to fly with us to Sacramento to take on the Kings. We could probably do that ourselves, and they almost did. Mm-hmm. And then, he gets an extra day off to kind of make up for having to play the All-Star game.
Yeah, and when we were watching the All-Star game, he didn't really play that much either. It was kind of good because you're hoping there was no really reason why he should play because again, even though it's Team LeBron, I mean, they were up by over 20 points, but on top of that, it was he wasn't going to get an MVP. There was no really incentive for him to even be playing as much as a Giannis or a Curry.
No, I think honestly it was one of those things where, we all saw LeBron make the comments that we shouldn't be having an all-star game, whatever. I think he showed up, he drafted his team, he played the first half, he did what he was contractually obligated to do, and so Adam Silver cannot fine him for skipping the all-star game or sitting it out or whatever. He did what he had to do, but there was no reason for him to play in the second half. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, and we were just wondering because Blake Griffin is now with the Brooklyn Nets. A lot of people were talking about that over the weekend, but now I feel as if Laker fans, on their mind, it's Andre Drummond. Do you think that is a realistic option for the Lakers to grab Andre Drummond from a buyouts market?
So the wording of Mark Stein's tweet yesterday made me feel like it is that it is realistic because a lot of times, when insiders kind of know stuff or sense things are headed a certain way, and they use language like so and so feels like they have a pretty good shot at so and so, and what it really means is this deal has probably been set up. But we aren't allowed to say that because, it would cause tampering investigation and all that stuff. And, we just see it, most famously, we see it during the draft with Woj, where he talks about, a team being lasered in on someone or whatever when there's, 30 seconds left on the clock. It's intentional word choice. And that made me feel like maybe there is a chance, and more of a chance than I would have thought before he reported that because, it's for the Nets, everyone, when they signed Blake, everyone was like, okay, well, the Nets probably spent all their money that they can spend and, they got their guy or whatever, but they ended up only signing him to the veterans minimum, which means that they still have that, it's somewhere around $5 million disabled player exception from Spencer Dinwiddie that they can use on another guy. So not only can they offer anyone who's coming in there like Drummond a bigger role because they don't really have, they still don't have other than DeAndre Jordan, a traditional center. And, they might be able to offer him a bigger role than he could get with the Lakers where he'd be behind probably Trez, Mark, and AD. And then they can also offer him significantly more money than the Lakers can. So I'm still not feeling super optimistic about it, but maybe there's who knows, maybe him and Blake don't get along. Maybe there's some, the Nets don't want to sign another big center because DeAndre Jordan is apparently the friendship MVP of the NBA and you just can't have a guy play over that. I don't know. But yeah, it's just the wording of his tweet made me feel like it's more possible than I felt before that.
Now, do you think if he doesn't land in the Lakers when it comes to Drummond, do you think it's going to be a make or break kind of thing? If the Lakers don't, their chances of repeating this year are going to slowly start fading? Do you think this is that big of a deal if they don't get him?
For me, not really, just because the thing that I keep saying is like, I understand that Mark is not a fan favorite at this point or whatever, but I think he's been better than he gets credit for, and I don't know necessarily if Drummond is going to play over him, especially for what you need, unless they just really, really feel like they made a mistake, they need that athletic big guy, whatever, which, that could be a thing. Maybe their thinking has changed since they signed Gonzales and decided to basically let Dwight walk, and they traded JaVale to make room for that. But unless their thinking has changed, then, or they move Trez or something like that, then like they're basically three guys when it matters that are going to be playing in front of Drummond. And for me, it's like the joke that I keep making and that I keep telling people is like, unless you thought JaVale was making a huge difference from the bench last year, yelling at shooters during the playoffs, like JaVale was not the reason they won the title. Like their size was not the reason they won the title. Yeah. Now, like Dwight helped for sure, but Dwight is a better defender than Drummond. I know some people are going to say that's blasphemous because Drummond is so much younger, and like Dwight has clearly lost a little bit of a step, but he's a better defender than Andre Drummond is at this point in their careers, even still, and was clearly more willing to buy into a role. And so I don't know. I'm very lukewarm on the Drummond thing. He's obviously the best. Like he's the pie in the sky if you feel like they need to add an athletic center. Yeah. That's definitely the best of your options right there. But I'm just not sure that that's super necessary, unless the Lakers know something about AD that he's just not going to be able to play center, he's not going to come back. But then, like in that case, and I don't think that that's the case, but like if that were the case, then you're screwed anyway. Andre Drummond isn't fixing that.
Yeah. And the reason why I would prefer Drummond on the Lakers is because, well, a lot of people were talking about, the minutes, the rest, they need more bodies. And it was this time last month, the Lakers were like in the middle of 3 overtime games. I mean, they played the Pistons, they played the Thunder, back-to-back games, and then even going into the Wizards later on in that month. So I know the Lakers, especially LeBron, has played over 40 minutes, short of like players such as Anthony Davis or even sometimes KCP. But the extra body is definitely needed for this team to go into long haul.
Yeah, no, I agree that they need an extra body. I just don't know if Drummond's that guy. I mean, they have, depending on what they do with Damian Jones, they're going to have 2 roster spots, either 1 or 2. And I prefer, for exactly the reasons that you just outlined, I think, like, go get a wing. Get a guy that can spell LeBron for some minutes. Or, obviously, like, if LeBron needs to sit out, you're just not quite as thin there. Maybe, like, their three-point shooting has been so bad for a little while that if you can get someone that can hit a 3 off of the buyout market and maybe defend a little bit, like, for me, I'd consider that a win.
Yep, and we're on the phone right now with Harrison Faigen. Follow him on Twitter at HMFAIGEN. That's HM Faigen on Twitter. So, Harrison, I know when it comes to the Lakers in the second half, you're right on the first half. We're wondering if you have any predictions going forward and how the Lakers are going to finish out this season.
Yeah, so, I mean, I guess I'll put my Nostradamus record on the line here. But,
Here we go.
Yeah, I honestly think it's going to be a little bit more of the same. Like, I feel like maybe they're going to play a little better if guys start to get healthy again. But, like, I mean, the reality is that this team just went through such a short turnaround. We aren't sure 100% when AD is going to be back. I think it's probably going to be in the first couple games after the All-Star break because they kept saying 4 weeks, and, I believe it'll be next week is 4 weeks. I think he'll miss, like, either the first 3 or 4 games or so. Yeah. And then he'll start to come back and work his way in. But, like, if he has a setback, they're obviously going to want to be careful with that. And, like, at some point here, you'd think that they're going to have to, them and LeBron are going to have a conversation about, him resting. And look, I thought that had happened this offseason, like based on what he was saying going into the year about being more open to load management than he'd been previously. And that obviously has not seemed to be the case for most of this season so far. But I think that they're going to continue to be cautious. I think we will see them start to ramp up a little bit and start to play a little harder. Like, I mean, they've admitted that they're treating these games like practices, and so there's really nowhere to go up nowhere to go other than up from an effort standpoint there. And so, like, I mean, maybe they'll start carrying for 3/4 of the games instead of half, but I do think that there's a certain element here of some of the reasons, like when they've played their good lineups and they've played their good guys, they've been really good. Yeah. But it's the moments when they're kind of just trying stuff out and everybody's like screaming, they're like, why is Vogel doing this or why are they doing that? And it's like, well, they're working on it so that they have it as an option because they can't practice. So these are basically like intramural scrimmages for them. And like the fact that they were, at one point this season, they were the number 1 seed, and they've obviously dropped since then to 3 or 4. I forget exactly where they are right now, but they were like kind of right in there with the Suns right at the end, and I haven't looked. But like they're towards the bottom of the upper half. I don't see them dropping out of the top 4 seeds, but I'm not sure how hard they're going to fight for home court advantage that may not even exist anyway or matter because of the situation, around the world right now where fans are not really allowed into sporting events. And like, are they really afraid of going into Utah and winning a road game 7? Like, I don't think so. And like, are they worried about the Clippers having home court advantage in a building that would be basically all Lakers fans for a playoff game anyway? Like, no. And so at that point, it's like, who are you scared of them being able to beat on the road that isn't in the Eastern Conference or something like that? And like, at that point, like, I'm just not sure that seeding matters a whole lot. And, a couple guys on the team have basically admitted that it doesn't matter to them.
I just had a picture of you because when you said playing in Utah, like I know they're like one of the few teams that makes an exception and has a capacity, but I could just picture them going like, it's Game 4 of the Utah Jazz, Los Angeles Lakers, Western Conference Finals. This place is packed, and it's just a bunch of like morbid people going, yay!
With pom-poms.
It's like 300 fans in the lower bowl, and they're like, I think they're letting in like 3,000 or something like that, but like that's still, that sounds like a lot of people with the way that the last year has kind of affected our brains and how we process numbers of people being in the same building. But like that building could probably hold like, I would imagine like 18,000. Yeah. Like it doesn't, there's a lot of people in there. It looks like there are people in there. Certainly you can see them, but they're like, it's not like packed to the brim where I feel like you're going to be getting any meaningful home court advantage. If anything, the Lakers have seemed to take a special joy in just having any fans in the building this year, whether they're Lakers fans or not, and have played better on the road, I think, as a result of just the energy not being so weird. Like, I haven't been to a game at Staples Center this season because I just don't see like the risk-reward trade-off just for me personally. But like from talking to people in there and, listening to the players talk about it, it's like a mausoleum, and that's no one's fault, but that's probably a weird energy to play a basketball game in.
Yeah, we had a guest on before that works with the Clippers, and we asked the same thing. Just how's the energy? He just says it's eerie and kind of like spooky in a way, because it's like it's exactly that. It's almost like you're playing basketball in an abandoned building. Right.
Like, I mean, I'm sure you've both been to Staples Center, and you know how big that building is. Yeah. Imagine if there's just like nobody in the crowd, but they're still playing sound effects, like there are fans there, and they're still playing clap your hands, and like it would be weird. I'd be freaked out.
Imagine you're sitting in the stands, all of a sudden like the kiss cam turns on, and it's like aims right on you, and then it's like, you guys making fun of me? Like there's no one next to me. But they're like, wait a minute.
Yeah. They get the defense chant going, and there's like nobody in the crowd to do it. The one thing that I have enjoyed about like the pandemic, like TV viewing experience basically this year is the road fan bases. I don't know if I've seen the Lakers do it, but I've seen a couple road teams do it, and maybe the Lakers haven't. I just didn't notice, but they will pipe in boos at a bad call, which is hilarious. That's like basically a team complaining to the refs, but not being able to get technical for it because it's the PA announcer. Like, I'm shocked the NBA allows this, but it is hilarious every time.
And to go to your comment about like how the Lakers seem to do well when there's actually fans there, I'm glad you brought that up because it's funny. Now that I think about it, the Cleveland Cavaliers, I mean, there were some fans that were like throwing like shade at LeBron. The Atlanta Hawks with what's her name? Karen.
Oh yeah, Karen.
Right. Like it's just like it's so funny because LeBron, even though he's getting hated so much, he's like, "Thank you, I have attention finally. This is what I want."
He's like, I can feel something. Right?
But I just want to ask Harrison one more question. What's your hot take with Pepe Le Pew getting cut from Space Jam 2? Are you disappointed like me?
I mean, honestly, now I'm just like, I kind of want to see what the hell this scene was that got cut from it. I just don't understand how anyone thought that this was a good idea. Like, for LeBron to, like, teach an animated skunk about consent. Like, I don't get it. It sounds like I think it's more hilarious than, like, any joke that they could have put in there that they thought that this was a good idea at any point. And I'm not shocked that the second director came in and was like, yeah, like, this is weird. We should probably not do that. Like, I'm not sure this serves or helps anyone. And yeah, like, I don't know. I could not believe that was a real headline when I saw it yesterday, Like, and then you keep reading the article and it keeps getting weirder. It's like the actress is apparently upset that her scene was cut, and it's like, you couldn't make it up. It was so strange. And yeah, I'm like, I actually, honestly, growing up, like, you know, I was not a huge Looney Tunes guy, so I only really saw him in Space Jam, and I don't remember, like, those themes necessarily being there in that movie, but maybe they were. It's been a while since I watched it.
Yeah.
And so, like, I didn't even know that he was known for that, and then so, like, I'm reading this article, and it was, I mean, that just blew my mind.